We're going to talk about emotional intelligence here today. We have talked about it on my channel before, but I want to share with you some new concepts around emotional intelligence, some deeper concepts around emotional intelligence, and expand more on some of the things that we have talked about before. Because if you have been watching my channel for a while, I think you are ready for these. Some of them are going to go deeper. This video may require a few watches for your brain to start to really connect with what I'm going to teach today. Also, if you are a shifter in the Shift Society, you are definitely ready to go deeper on these concepts because you have been actively doing the work in there. As a side note, when we look at our emotional intelligence, where you're at as far as how much time and energy and effort and intention you've been putting into building your emotional intelligence, there is no judgment. This isn't about someone who has more emotional intelligence is better than someone who has less. It's just where you're at with your emotional intelligence, just a product of so many things. Your upbringing, how in tune with your emotions you were allowed to be growing up. Things that you learned, things that you were taught, things that you were told. And for most of us, it wasn't a whole lot. For some, maybe there was more, but for a lot of us, there wasn't a whole lot. And for some, not at all. And so just like any skill, we let ourselves be where we're at. We look for the areas of growth, and then we focus on that. Being more emotionally intelligent doesn't make you a better person. Being less emotionally intelligent doesn't make you a worse person. It's just a skill that is built. So you're going to use this talk today to kind of see where you're at, see where you want to focus, and get clear on where you want to put your intentions and what you want to work on and build on after this. Okay? So no judgment. I think that you're going to get a lot out of this. And like I said, it is going to go deep. If you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second and introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you're back, always good to have you. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. The buttons are out right down there. You'll get notified when new videos come out. Either way, my name is Kristina, and I'm a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and the creator of my incredible membership community, the Shift Society, where we are taking these concepts that you're learning here on my channel to a much deeper level, and you are being supported and helped the whole way through. You can get more information about the Shift Society in the description below. I help heart-centered humans break through the crap that is holding them back so they can like themselves and their lives more every day. And becoming more emotionally intelligent will help you like yourself and your life more. Because so many of us struggle so much with our emotions, we end up judging ourselves for our emotions, we end up getting ourselves in emotional messes, we end up doing things with our emotions that can lead to other kinds of messes, and that can really hold us back and get in our way. So building our emotional intelligence, it kind of just clears the way for us to be human beings with human feelings without all of the mess that we often create around that. Now, again, let yourself be where you're at. If as we talk about this today, this topic, and I go through these signs with you, you're like, I've got such a long ways to go. Oh my gosh, I can't possibly do this. Then you're probably going to get overwhelmed and you're going to give up and be like, forget it, it's too hard. And that's not going to get you anywhere. But if you just let yourself be where you're at and say, there's no judgment, I am where I am. And what I can do today is one intentional step. I can do one intentional thing. I can be aware of something different that I wasn't before. I can make one shift. This is the philosophy behind the Shift Society, is that small, intentional, regular shifts are what create the big life transformations. Because if we expect ourselves to have these big transformations all at once and then realize that that's not the way that it works and we can't do that, then we judge ourselves and think that there's something wrong with us. And then we get overwhelmed and we give up and we haven't actually gotten anywhere. So that's actually part of emotional intelligence, is not judging yourself for where you are at. But let's talk about these 5 that we came here to talk about today. The first one, and this is a very, very simple one, but for a lot of people, it's not easy because they've never learned how to do it. And this one is simply being able to identify what you're feeling. So people who are more emotionally intelligent are able to identify what they're feeling. But for a lot of you, you may not be able to. And that's probably because, not because you're weird or broken or flawed or whatever judgments you're going to make up about yourself. It's just because you weren't given the opportunity to. You weren't taught how. Maybe feelings were not allowed in your home growing up. Maybe you were punished for having your feelings. Maybe you were ignored or neglected when you had feelings. You just didn't really ever learn what to do with them. So you never really learned how to identify them. And so if that's where you're at right now, if you're like, I don't even know what I'm feeling, then that's where you're going to want to start. But if you are like, you know what, I've been working on this, I've been spending time with this, I can identify what I'm feeling, then you have built that level of emotional intelligence. That's where you're at right now. Just simply being able to identify your feelings means that you have at least some emotional intelligence. And if you're not able to, then that's where you're going to start. Just being able to say, like, what am I feeling right now? And even if you can't particularly put a name on it, because sometimes that can be tricky, right? Especially if you're new to the whole feeling identifying. If you can't put a specific name on, you're like, I don't know exactly what I would call this feeling. Start with just paying attention to what that feeling feels like in your body. When you're having a feeling, when you're feeling anxious or hurt or discouraged or upset or jealous or whatever that is, just start to pay attention. What does that feel like in my body? Because that's what a feeling is. It's a sensation or a physiological experience in our bodies. So just start to notice that. And now the next sign that you are further along on your emotional intelligence building journey is that you don't judge yourself for your feelings. You don't tell yourself, I'm weird or broken or flawed or defective for having this feeling. You acknowledge that if you are a human being having a feeling, then it means that it is a possibility on the spectrum of human feelings. I'm going to say that again. If you are a human being having a feeling, it means that it is an option. It is one of the optional human experiences, which means that you are not the only one experiencing it because you are a human being. It is one of the options. It's not necessarily right or wrong or good or bad. It just is. So much of the emotional drama that we create for ourselves is judging ourselves for our feelings. Our feelings are just our feelings. And we're going to talk a little bit more about where they come from. But if you could just acknowledge that this is just what I'm feeling right now, right or wrong, good or bad, healthy or unhealthy, productive or unproductive, this is just the human experience I'm having in this moment. Now, we're going to do more with it than that, but just first, just let yourself have your feelings without judging them. Because as soon as we go into judging them, then we get ourselves stuck because we get ourselves kind of in this internal conflict about whether or not I should be having this feeling and what does this mean about me if I'm having this feeling and what does this say about my, my worth and my value and my abilities as a human being if I am having this feeling or whatever it is. So, a sign that you are, working on your emotional intelligence journey and making some strides is that you are allowing yourself to have your feelings. Which leads us really naturally into the next one, is you also don't avoid, numb, repress, or buffer your feelings. You create space for your feelings. You notice what you're feeling and you don't try to run away from them as quickly as possible. You give yourself a chance to get curious about them, to take a step back and to process what is going on with me right now. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm having this feeling, I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling jealous or I'm feeling angry. I have to get rid of this as quick as possible. I got to do something I got to eat something, or I got to drink something, or I got to shop for something immediately to get rid of this feeling. Instead, you're able to just be like, this is a feeling that I'm having. What does it feel like? What's going on with me? Why is this coming up right now? What's happening? And you are able to take a step back and respond to those feelings instead of react from those feelings. Feelings are just feelings. They're just, like I said, these sensations and experiences within our bodies. And just taking a second to get curious about them, you would be surprised how few people on this planet do that. It might sound so simple, just be like, oh, I'm just going to notice what I'm feeling. I'm just going to take a step back and take a breath and get curious about what's going on. Very few people do that. And so being able to do that it's an amazing thing. And so if you have been doing that, give yourself a pat on the back and recognize yourself for doing something that most people don't do. And if this is an area that you're struggling with, again, don't judge yourself. Just be like, okay, this is something I'm going to start working on. I'm going to start just working on allowing myself to have my human feelings. And again, we're not batting for, I'm not going to use a sports analogy because that's just going to be a disaster. We're not going for 100% here. This doesn't mean that every single time you have a feeling, you are able to handle it in this mature, responsible, self-actualized, whatever kind of way. Sometimes we do, right? Sometimes we win and sometimes we learn. Sometimes we're successful and sometimes we get curious and be like, okay, that didn't go so well. What happened there? What do I want to do differently next time? So letting yourself have your feelings without running away from them as quickly as possible. That said, our next sign of emotional intelligence, and this one is a bit more nuanced, and this one is that you know when you need some distraction from your feelings. We can't sit around analyzing ourselves, dissecting ourselves, right? Trying to change everything and do everything right and understand exactly what's going on. We can't do that all the time. We actually have lives to live as well. We can't sit around just sort of in our own heads all the time, because we've got stuff to do and we've got lives to live. And we need to also have time to just go out and have fun and enjoy ourselves and be ourselves and live ourselves. And so knowing when you're like, you know what? I don't actually know exactly what's going on right now. I, don't have it all figured out right now. I'm going to take a break from this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something else. I just need to get out of my head on this. You're not supposed to be sitting around analyzing yourself all day. It's not realistic and it's actually not helpful. If you've ever kind of had this teaching if you work in any kind of creative field or any kind of idea generation field, you know that you can't just sit around trying to think about things, trying to come up and be inspired and have these kind of profound realizations. You can't do that all day if you work in some kind of creative field, if you're like a graphic designer, or if you're like a playwright or a book writer, or I don't know, underwater basket weaver. You're trying to figure out your new basket weaving project. I don't know what it is. But you can't just sit around and be in your head all the time. You need to take breaks from it. You need to go out and you need to do other things. And then often finding even that break will help refresh things and give you more clarity. And so knowing when you're like, you know what, I've been going around with this for a while. I need some time to not think about it, to not try and understand it. Knowing when you need that, finding that balance between taking a step back and getting curious and looking for more clarity, but then also knowing when you just need to get out of your head and get more into living your life. Our next one, and perhaps the deepest one and the most life-changing one, is when you are, I'm going to tell you, this one is not easy before I get to it. Little teaser there. This one is not easy. This one is one that I have been working on for a while now. And it's taken me a while to get to the point where I could really lean into this and get a handle on it. So again, not judging yourself if you're not there yet, right? This is all a process, and we're working on progress, not perfection. We're working on learning and growing, not just, not always just achieving. But that said, this sign of emotional intelligence is knowing that emotions are not a problem if they are simply felt. I'm going to say that again. Your emotions are not a problem if you just allow yourself to feel them, to acknowledge them, to be with them, to process them. It's not a problem or dangerous to have feelings, even if it doesn't always feel great, even if it's not always pleasant and enjoyable. It's not lethal. It's not a problem. The problem again comes in when we start judging it and being like, oh, I can't feel this way. This is so awful. I need to get rid of this as quickly as possible. I can't handle this. Yes, you can. It's a non-threatening sensation. It's a combination of non-threatening sensations in your body. Again, it might not feel good, but it's not going to damage you. It's what we often do with our feelings that is problematic, right? It's the actions we take to try to offset, diffuse, deflect, numb, and avoid our feelings that creates the big problems for us. But the feelings in and of themselves are not a problem. So reminding yourself of that, no matter what I am feeling right now, even if I don't like this feeling, even if I am tempted to numb, avoid, repress, or act out on this feeling, I don't have to. I can just process the feeling. And often when we just allow ourselves to be with our feelings, they do move through much more easily, much more naturally. We don't have to do a whole lot with them. Now, we can get in there and we can work on our thoughts and we can look at, what's causing the feeling, what thoughts or interpretation or belief or idea, whatever that is that's creating this feeling right now. And we can work on that. And that is what we do in the Shift Society. We take this work deeper and start to look at what's causing the feeling, what's underneath that feeling, and then we work on that. But sometimes we don't actually even need to do that. We just need to let ourselves be human beings with human feelings. Nothing has gone terribly wrong if you are not feeling positive and happy and joyful and content all the time. Right? The goal of being a complete human being is not to only feel half your feelings. Contrary to what our little bit of emotion phobic society tells us, or at least half emotion phobic, it's like you're not allowed to feel any of these feelings. You only are allowed to feel positive and happy and grateful all the time. And if you're not feeling those things all the time, you must be doing something wrong. And so, you just need to work harder instead of being, understanding that being a complete human being means that we have the complete human experience. And there's no natural way to bypass that. So emotional intelligence is not about only having half of your feelings. It's about creating space for and getting curious about all of them and letting ourselves be human beings with human feelings. This is a deeper one. If you need help with this, if you're like, I get it, Julia, but I don't know what to do, come and join us in the Shift Society. This is what we do there. I walk you through a process for being able to process your feelings and get more clarity on your feelings. And then you're supported the whole way through by me and the other Shift Society coaches and the other members of the Shift Society, some of whom have been there for over a year now, and they've got tons of knowledge and wisdom to be able to share and offer. And yeah, it's just this really beautiful community of people at all the different stages on their journey, supporting, loving, being there for, and connecting with one another, as you're also given step-by-step tools to be able to sort out what's going on in here and up in here. So you get more information about that in the description below. Also, just giving yourself, being able to take a step back, no matter what is going on in your life or in your head. You can do that with my free 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise. This is going to be a great way to give your brain a break, to give your emotions a break, give yourself a break. You can get the audio for that in the description below. 10-minute guided mindfulness audio exercise. That one's free. Grab that. Let me know what connected with you. Where are you at? Are you like, okay, I've got some work to do. I know where I'm going to start. Are you like, okay, I've been doing my work and I see it paying off? Wherever you're at, let yourself be there and share with us in the comment section below. Always good to have you. Until next time, take good care.